Okay, Xander, go ahead.
All right, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Wednesday, which is our day of action, our day of missions here at Defiance. It's really why we built the organization to make sure that we can come together on a weekly basis to figure out what we can do to fight against authoritarianism. Authoritarianism, not good. This place, good, if you have to simplify it. If you're new here, this is but sorry, excuse me. But before we go on, I want to bring on my co-host, Maritza Giorgio, of the wonderful Grounded podcast. Maritza, hey, how you doing?
Hey guys, how we doing? It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. It's so nice to do this Wednesday with you and not Miles Taylor. we've got the ship. We're the captains now.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. We what was that movie with Tom Hanks?
Yeah. Look at me.
I'm the captain
Miles
now.
is watching this stream. All right. Well, before we go on, we've got to get our hands a little dirty and get to the mission of the week, but we like to keep the energy high and start off with a win. And today actually pertains a lot to the work ahead. So last week, we had some hard news. The Senate passed the voting reconciliation bill to fund DHS into 2029. Now, while that is a tough pill to swallow and a definite issue to overcome if Democrats regain control after the midterms, there was a small silver lining. Once again, Trump's nefarious voter intimidation bill, known as the SAVE Act, failed to pass the Senate. This, in and of itself, is a win, but the win actually carried into this week. Since its failure, Trump has been mapping an avenue of recourse to claw back the bill, including once again pushing for the firing of the Senate parliamentarian. Well, today, Senate Majority Leader John Thune was pressed if this was an order he was willing to follow through with. There, in front of the press, he made it known the SAVE Act is all but dead, and there isn't much we can do about it.
The parliamentarian and pass the SAVE Act. You've been very clear as to why the SAVE Act doesn't have the votes to pass and why firing the parliamentarian would create problems here. But are you worried that if you don't do what the president wants, that he's going to criticize your leadership or perhaps withdraw support for your leadership?
That could happen. Look, and it's a well-known fact around here. Sometimes perhaps not fully grasped around the country, but anybody who follows this process closely knows that we don't have the votes. And the only way that you could figure out a way to get the votes, and even in that case, the Save America Act didn't even get 50 votes last week on the floor of the Senate. But even if you confine it to just the two issues of photo ID and citizenship in order to register to vote, on those two issues, it takes 60 votes in the Senate. The only way you could get there is to undo or get rid of the legislative filibuster, and there aren't even close to the votes here in the United States Senate in order to achieve that. So it's an issue we all agree on. We're all for it, and we've all voted that way. But it's not something that we're going to be able to get done absent having an election and electing some more Republicans.
Maritza, before I go on, I want to get your reaction. To me, it's always so stunning, and it shouldn't be stunning, when there's someone saying the emperor has no clothes on the Republican side. Just saying it like it is, and forcing him to confront reality. What's your reaction to Thune there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing about it could happen. They know that nobody is safe here. That
Yes.
you defy the president one time, it doesn't matter how many other times you'd voted with him or supported his policies or praised him or kissed the ring, that one misstep could mean political death to them. So, I mean, I think it's interesting to hear those words from John Thune, but we've seen this how many times before? I mean, again, I go back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I never had on my bingo card that she and the president would be at odds and that she'd actually even leave Congress over it. So, I think they know, but he's right. They don't have the votes. And the president has been pushing for them to blow up the filibuster, but they also know that will not be good for them down the road when they lose power. So I don't know. I was just checking True Social, actually, Xander, to see if the president has done any screaming yet, but I haven't. I'm getting there. I'm scrolling. He doesn't.
I'll say, look, I'll just summarize this a little bit. Therefore, our win of the week, just take a step back, is that now, despite renewed efforts to revive it, the SAVE Act remains off the table. I know this is like, you just to go back to it, Marisa, this was kind of like a monster under the bed for a lot of us because of how terrifying parts of it were, especially like women who changed their last name, folks who live in rural areas, et cetera. Like it really was such a clear attempt to have a less true democracy. And it's nice to see that some of Trump's more, wild and ambitious ideas are dying on the vine.
Well, and we saw, I mean, Lisa Murkowski is, she's one of these Republican senators who, they have, between she and Susan Collins, both, they have been thorns in the president's side on some of these issues. And part of it is because they're women. And Lisa Murkowski did this whole presentation on the floor of the Senate where she showed exactly where she would have to go to get all the documents needed to prove her citizenship. Under that bill and what it would have required. And yeah, I mean, the thing that I think you'll appreciate this, Xander, when we talk about even just getting a new ID, right? And I don't even know what it costs here in Montana, but I think it's like $20. For some people, $20 is the difference in feeding their family that week.
Yeah.
It is
There's a lot of people who live on those margins.
These are not easy things for people, much less the time it takes, time off work, childcare, transportation, there's a lot at play here. So I think that this is a good step for voting rights.
Look, perfect. Before we go on, actually, I'm seeing that I'm getting an error on Substack. So if you're on Substack and you're running into some difficulties, you can jump over to YouTube, our YouTube, defiance.org on YouTube, and you'll see the same live stream over there. I know we're having trouble in my area and Mercedes, so I just want to make sure all of our listeners have a home base to go see this if Substack's giving you trouble. Maritza, is that true for you too? Substack giving you a hard time?
No, I'm on Substack.
All right, must be just in some areas.
But I see that some people are saying that on the YouTube comments. So I see some hearts. I see some hearts still on Substack. So we'll just keep it up on both. Yeah.
If you're doing fine over there, but if for whatever reason you run into trouble like I am in Portland or Mercedes is in Chicago, then jump over to our YouTube. So that story and the protection of voting rights leads us into this story. This week, we're focusing on a community that's found itself at the center of nearly every voting rights debate in America. Over the last few months, we've seen fights over voter rolls, citizenship requirements, ICE at polling places, and now new efforts to obtain voter data. While these policies affect all voters, Latino communities often feel the impact first. So tonight, we're going to discuss what's happening, hear directly from leaders working on these issues, and support an organization helping Latino voters make sure their voices are heard during these midterms. So let's get started. To help us understand why that mission matters right now, we're joined by Laura Conover, the elected Pima County attorney in Arizona. Pima County sits along the U.S.-Mexico border and is home to a large Latino population. Laura, thank you for being here.
It's so nice to be back with both of you. Am I supposed to echo Xander that not Miles? Miles is not here. I don't know. I feel badly there.
Are you going to help?
No, we don't all have to pick on him. It's okay. We don't have to pile on.
No, it's a delight. It's a delight to be back with you both, and on such a critical issue. It's a moment where I really want to thank Defiance for helping to launch, really being critical to help launch the fight against federal overreach, a group of nationwide prosecutors pushing back, fighting back, defying the efforts by the federal administration to mess with our democracy and our very voting rights. So yes, of course, our community is high level for high attempts at intimidation. And one of the first things that we're doing is just really flooding the communications from city, county, state government, flooding the zone with the notion that we are going to have free and fair and safe elections. and that if ever there was a time to exercise your right to vote, this is the time. We need you in the primary. We need you in November, and we're not gonna succumb to this intimidation. In fact, we're gonna over flood it back, right? We're gonna drive up voter participation, because how dare we be challenged in this way?
Well, Laura, usually when we say free and fair, we're talking about making sure the votes are counted, right? That people can come out and we're counting the votes correctly. In this case, there's another aspect to this, which is, you have a large Latino population in your county.
Yeah.
Do they feel free and safe to even go to a polling location in atmosphere where the president is talking about having armies of election protection, agents at polling locations? And so there's not only a need to say, look, the election is safe and fair, but also you personally in these, especially in these mixed families where there's mixed statuses amongst these Latino families, you personally are safe to come out. Can you talk about that challenge a little bit?
Can we point out though, really first, that that's illegal? Yeah. Like it's illegal to say federal agent.
Illegal.
So sorry, let me just get that out. Okay, go ahead, Laura.
That's illegal. That's illegal. Yeah.
And I love, this is why I love Maritza, right? She just beat the attorney to the punch, because so now see, she's teeing me up to nerd out on the law, right? Which is
there we go.
Yes, let's do it.
So wild to know that Arizona law is super protective of the voter. It is a felony to interfere with anyone who is attempting to help run a polling location or help in an election in any way. And it's a criminal violation to intimidate a voter. And what's wild here is that it's the standard of the voter feeling intimidated, meaning that what we have here in Arizona is the opportunity for local law enforcement, which is why we're doing tons of training, to document if voters are feeling intimidated, having second guesses about whether they're going to get out of the car and go to the poll to vote, right? Documenting that feeling of intimidation, getting an affidavit, running into court to get a temporary restraining order to haul people away from polling locations if they are engaging in behavior that we've seen here in Arizona, wearing camo with long guns. And what I love is that they're 76 feet outside the polling location, just outside the 75-foot rule, right? But it's whether yet they are intimidating voters, and it won't be tolerated. We will do everything possible legally to get that court order signed by a judge, run back and haul those people away, because we will not tolerate.
Here's where I am concerned, Laura, and I hope you can help me feel less concerned about this, or provide a roadmap forward. I know some folks close to us who are afraid to even travel by plane right now, not because they're here and they're undocumented, but because they have an accent and they don't want to be interrogated, and they don't want to go to a detention facility while things are being investigated, as we've seen happen. So I worry that even if those things aren't happening because there are law enforcement agents out there making sure the intimidation doesn't happen, what about just the threat of the intimidation keeping people from going out because they don't want to risk it? What about that?
It's powerful, Maritza. You're right. It's not right. This is a powerful tool that they're using. They're using fear and intimidation on purpose. Here, where we have, and knock on wood, will continue to have access to early mail-in ballots, right? The big push is going to be to use that tool from the safety of your home. So there's going to be a huge drive to get people to vote by mail, but that's not everybody's option, especially in a growing population like we are in Southern Arizona. So we've got to make it still yet available at the polls on election day. I'll tell you that part of my strategy has been to really push my local law enforcement partners to be out there with me on the messaging, to reassure that whether it's right now because you're suddenly confronted with some unidentified person wearing a mask and ordering you to do things, whether it's happening right now, or whether it's your attempt to go vote. For our community, there's like a through line, right? It's all the same. And the question I keep getting asked is, if I call 911, will my local police come and prevent harm and protect me as their resident? And my campaign has been to say, yes, our local people who live in our neighborhoods, who chose local municipal law enforcement, the vast majority chose that life for the right reasons. And yes, if you are afraid, if you are in harm, if you are feeling intimidated, just trying to do your American patriotic duty of voting, that yes, you'll call 911 and your local law enforcement will respond. And that's a culture movement that we're engaged in. Behind the scenes, it's a lot of like, look, I know I'm asking for you to contemplate and face situations of uniform and all roads lead to the South. All roads lead to Alabama. Like they did it then. They had to survive that tension of uniform against uniform, but the safety of our people and the health of our democracy and the right to vote are going to have to carry the day, and they will.
Can you talk a little bit about the communication challenge in getting out that message? Because you've got a group of people, to Maritz's point, already feel intimidated, aren't maybe in a hurry to self-identify and say, hey, Laura, like I've got a mixed status family, or I may be targeted, because to Maritz's point, something as passive as like, I just have an accent. Therefore, I'm worried about like just reaching these people. That's already hard. I'll just say that's already an extremely hard challenge for local officials in 2026 anyways. Like Maritza, you come from local news. Like when we had local news and people watched local news, for someone like Laura to get the word out, it was a lot easier when there was a little bit more of a hegemony around local news. Totally. And so you could, in this era, it's already hard, doubly so when you're talking about a population that, like I said, is nervous about self-identifying, that they might have some challenges and might be scared getting out to the polls. How are you handling that communication challenge?
Well, part of it might be the benefit of just the community I live in and where I live. So, we're talking about, practically an even split of the community. We're so bicultural and so bilingual. I think Maritza will appreciate that. I think by leaps and bounds, like Telemundo and Univision have the biggest following locally here, like way out, so they're tuned in, they're dialed in, also Spanish radio. So the messaging is in Inglés y también en español, claro. So like we're doing all it, like everything I say is repeated in Spanish as well, which is huge. And that really like saturates the community and the messaging and gets it out. Not to mention local partners, right? My mayor is the first Latina mayor of Tucson since we were like a territory, right? Her ability to reach and like collaborating our brand new police chief is the first Latina police chief for sure ever of the city. Wow. So uniting our messaging sort of amplifies our messaging, right? And really gets in there that we're all working together to get the very best possible outcome. And so I'm sure not all communities are sort of enjoying that kind of united messaging. And certainly, I'm only speaking for Southern Arizona, right? There's a lot going on in Phoenix, which is Maricopa County right now, on elections and voting. And so we have our work cut out for us here in Arizona, to say the least.
I mean,
there's always
stakes are as
something
high as
going on
possible.
there.
I was gonna say, Arizona. I mean, this is one of those things. Like you can fall into a vicious cycle or a virtuous cycle here. Like if you can get this group to turn out at the midterms, you can sway Congress. Arizona always plays a critical role in these federal elections. You can sway Congress, and you can get a check on this president. You could potentially end the likelihood that we will have voter intimidation in the future. But you've got to get past this initial hurdle of like bravery and courage and protection from officials to get there.
So, Laura, I do want to ask you about mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
If I could.
Yes,
because we know the president has not made it a secret that he is very against vote by mail, even though he voted by mail this primary.
Right. Suddenly. Right.
My friend.
I don't know.
Yeah. My friend Liz Landers from PBS pressed him on that earlier this year in the White House. But I want to ask about some breaking news that we saw, because CNN is reporting that states could actually lose mail ballot delivery if those states refuse to provide voter information to the federal government under this proposed postal service policy. So, of course, this stems from the president's executive order earlier this year that would require states to hand over voter information, voter rolls, in order to continue certain mail voting programs. States like mine, where I live in Montana, they did hand over that information, but other states said no, and they sued. So, Laura, the administration says this is about finding non-citizens on the voter rolls, but for years we have watched as politicians use Latino communities as the face of that argument. So I'm wondering kind of about the legal battle ahead on this, and if you think this is going to impact vote by mail this November.
So we were one of the states, of course, Maureen, so you guessed correctly, right? Of course, we were one of the states where they demanded that we turn it over. Right. Our Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, said no, and I think was sued over it. In late April, he won. He won that court battle, and I think what I would say about that is that we're going to do everything in the legal realm and in the courthouses to protect what we have and the rights that we have. And once you get kind of a big win like that, there are opportunities in the legal realm to kind of go right back into that same courthouse, that same courtroom where you won previously, you reopen litigation, and federal judges, they don't like it so much when they order a thing and the losing side follows it for a little bit and then doesn't, or never follows it. And so there's momentum in the legal realm to get the ruling. The law is on our side, the Constitution's on our side. My office, we just filed our 4th against the federal administration after winning the first 3. And so once you build that momentum, it's going to get harder and harder, or less and less efficient to try to keep this fight up. And in the meantime, we'll just keep rolling with what we've always done. I mean, Arizona's it's called Pebble. Arizona's been a permanent early voting location forever, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard. And so once something is normalized across generations, and embedded in the law and statute, it's hard to disrupt that, and which is why I think we're winning in the courts.
Laura, I know you got to run, but I want to let you leave us with a message of hope. Anything lately that you're seeing, either at FAFO or in your own community, really making you feel like we're starting to turn this ship in the right direction?
You know, Xander, increasingly, I feel that every day. The fight against federal overreach, which, yes, Larry Krasner named FAFO, right? And Xander knows I've come to embrace this. With his help. He's remembering now. With his help, the fight against federal overreach is on fire. It's on fire. We might need to add an F there, F bomb.
More Fs, always more Fs.
Like we're meeting virtually every couple of weeks. We just had another, we come together in a 14-hour marathon. Food is brought in. We're not allowed to move. And experts, I know I'm nerding out again, but experts come in on the Constitution, on American history, on the Supremacy Clause, you name it. Like, we're going to push back at the highest levels. And you know what? When we drag them into court, they're ill-prepared, unable to answer easy questions from the bench, and they lose. And we're just going to keep up this fight for as long as it takes. We're here for it. We're ready for it. And again, really, really grateful to Defiance.
Well,
speaking
Laura,
of here for it, I'm
go
always
ahead.
here for Laura nerding out.
Yeah.
Like, if we can nerd out ever, like, I am all about nerding out about pretty much anything related to our government. Let's do it.
Love it. Love it. Love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to your community. Thank you for working with all these other DAs across the country. We're all trying to get our master's degree in protecting the Constitution and figuring out how to punch back against these folks. So thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Be well.
All right, gang. Let's turn to our mission. Fun part. Well, that was a fun part. Another fun part.
Yeah.
We are going to bring on one of the organizations leading to solve this problem of Latino voter intimidation and trying to organize Latino voters from across this country to come out and help build a better country and protect their communities. Joining us is Beatriz Lopez and Amir Patel from Voto Latino. Voto Latino has spent years helping Latino communities register, participate, and make sure the voices are heard at the ballot box. And with the midterms approaching, they're already preparing for the challenge ahead. Oh, we just got Beatriz today. I'm seeing in the notes. That's all right. Beatriz is amazing. She's in here. Come on, Beatriz. Join us. So nice to see you.
Hi, how are you guys doing? I was frantically texting Amir. I was like, Amir, you're supposed to be on. Did you know that?
You know what?
Okay,
Amir's been hanging out with me all day. I've been texting Amir and like going back and forth all day. So I've got a lot of him.
Texting.
It's all right. I got my feel. I've got some Beatriz now.
Yeah.
Beatriz,
I like it.
Before we dive into this, I've got a lot of questions about this moment, but can we back? Your organization is like really well regarded in the pro-democracy space writ large. You've been someone that's been brought up to me for years. And can you give us a little bit of an origin story on Voto Latino?
Yes, so Voto Latino began at the time 22 years ago, founded by Maria Teresa Kumar and Rosario Dawson. Yes, the Rosario Dawson that we know today of, actress fame. They had this idea of like, how do we reach at scale voters, Latino voters, and register them to vote at a time when they weren't being registered to vote at the scale that they needed to be. They were kind of like an ignored emerging electorate. And so they huddled together, and Maria Teresa tells this beautiful story. Like, we started just like with whatever I had in my bank account at a Starbucks using free Wi-Fi to launch Voto Latino and really reach young Latinos who were already online. This is like during the time where Facebook was just becoming a thing, and et cetera. They were really trying to reach young Latinos through wherever they can meet them, which is mostly digital first. And so that is the origin story of Voto Latino. And since then, we have registered over 1.4 million Latinos across the country. Wow. Yes, it is. That was the mission. And obviously our mission is far from being accomplished, but it is the start, and we continue to grow and sort of try to be experimental and really try to continue reaching this young electorate that continues to be the youngest electorate to date.
So Beatriz, we just talked to Laura about some of the challenges facing Latino voters, and we want to talk about some of the solutions here. So as you look ahead to 2026, and the midterms. Sorry, I have to sneeze. Hold on. Oh, excuse me.
That's actually a special part of every program, right? She said she does it right before. It's like Tourette's. Right before she asks a really good question, she sneezes.
So sorry. I just couldn't help it. So when you look at 2026 and the midterms, what are the things you've identified as the big concerns that need to be addressed? And what are the solutions? What are you doing right now to prepare for those concerns?
So there's two big challenges that we have ahead. Many political operatives and the folks that really study Latino voters really focus, and you hear the news really focusing on the Latinos who shifted to the right. And so they're like, how do we get them back? First of all, Latinos are locked into a party. So they are a persuadable electorate. They're a persuadable audience that we have to reach, that you have to invest in, that you have to actually talk to. And in just the same way we talk about how we talk authentically to white voters, rural voters, it's the same thing with Latinos. You know, we have to be able to reach them and actually pay attention to their concerns. So that is, but to me, that is just one small challenge that I think we can overcome. But the second big challenge that I would see is that there is this voting bloc within the Latino population that sat out the elections and just didn't vote. And there's many things. It's because they maybe don't have reasons. They're not being reached. So it's kind of in the same big bucket that we talk about this persuadable voter, but also this challenge of like, how do we reach them to not sit out? Because we need their vote. They have the power. They need to understand that they can actually change and shape the politics of today. And part of how we get there is, one, is sort of really expressing to them, giving them solutions, giving them candidates that they can believe in, giving them a vision that they can believe in as well. The other part is also making sure that they understand that when they go to vote, whether it's early voting, absentee vote, or in November, is that they can vote safely. And I know you were talking about this with Lauren. You know, there's all these suppression tactics. There's talk about ICE at the polls, military at the polls, National Guard at the polls, and it's scary. It's scary, you know, because now what we've seen is that we're all targets, right? Whether I have my U.S. passport or not.
Right.
It's something that you think about. Should I go out there? Should I put myself at risk, even though I'm a U.S. citizen? So that's what we're trying to overcome. And that's what I'd be happy to talk to you about, how we're trying to overcome as well.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I'll say I kind of have like a wandering thought process here that I just want to say out loud, and then I'm going to get to a question. You mentioned the Latino voters before you all were around were deeply underinvested in, and you mentioned that they're not locked into a party, and that's partially why they weren't deeply invested in. Right? Is that it wasn't guaranteed if you just funded community organizers, you'd get a Democratic vote. Right? A lot of political money, like it or not, is not as in solidarity as we like to pretend it is. It's very transactional in nature. And so you see Latinos and also like Asians and Pacific Islanders also are really deeply underinvested in for that same reason. You don't really know as a, wealthy donor what you're buying when you pay to organize. Latinos, since then you've been doing it. And I think a lot of folks were surprised in 2016, 2020 that we weren't seeing like the Latino civil rights moment that we saw in the 60s with Black communities, where it's like our community is under threat. This is our moment. We've got to organize, and we're gonna turn out like never before, and we're gonna turn out kind of uniformly pro-immigration or across these issues. I'm not saying that was the right assumption. Clearly, it wasn't, but that was an assumption that simply wasn't true in 2016, 2020. I want to the two-part question I want to get to is, one, why you think, some of us are armchair experts were wrong in that assessment. And if you're seeing 2026, seeing that assessment maybe be true in 2026, because now we're actually seeing more oppressive actions against this community and a lot more people personally impacted by it.
Yeah, I think one thing in 2016 and 2020, what we saw is this, abrasive candidate who kind of, broke sort of the establishment talking points. My background is comms. So it's like when you have somebody who's just kind of being authentic, who's being real, who's speaking to people's pain points, obviously it's going to reach a certain part of the electorate and excite them. and get them out there and vote. And I think that's why I have deep issues, which I think Democrats are trying to overcome, is like Democrats never had this, like, they either stick to one talking point or not, whatever is poll tested, and that's it. And it's like, you can't, you have to actually talk, really acknowledge people's pain, and then give them something to hope for, but also to motivate them and to be real about what we're going to do about it. And I think, fast forward to today, I think this time there's a real opportunity. As I was telling another reporter earlier today, when we were talking about Colorado 08, which is a competitive district in Colorado, and I said to him, you know, the difference today doesn't matter who the Democratic candidate is, which there are two solid Democratic candidates who are primarying right now. We have receipts that now we can connect them to people's pain point. Colorado 8 is currently under Congressman Gabe Evans, who's a Republican who's voted to fund ICE. He funded the big beautiful bill. He's done everything wrong for his constituents. So now we have receipts, and I think that's a big difference today, that we have the receipts of these guys who could care less about people's economic pain points right now, and the pain points as well that come with ICE going in and invading into neighborhoods and separating families, etc.
Yeah. That makes sense. You didn't have your Edmund Pettus bridge. You didn't have the dogs attacking kids yet. You had someone saying he might do those things, but you didn't quite have those receipts yet, as you mentioned. That makes sense.
Yes, yeah. And so I think that's an opportunity to, show those receipts and give people a reason to go out and vote. And we have to do our part to make sure that all of us can tell Latino voters and voters of colors, hey, you can vote safely.
So, Beatriz, I mean, you talked about pain points. There's certainly a lot of pain points right now for voters across the country. And so often, Defiance members and followers of my show Grounded on Substack always ask, like, what's something tangible that we can do? What can we actually do to help? So I'm asking you, what are your marching orders for our audience tonight? What can people do?
Well, first of all, you could go to votolatino.org/partners and really sort of partner up with us, but also get prepared to vote. Make sure that your neighbors, your friends are all prepared to vote. We have a lot of action events that we're going to be holding as well. But more than anything, if there's an opportunity, especially if you live in a battleground state, and you know your battleground states, folks, you live in a battleground state, volunteer to be a poll watcher, volunteer to get trained on de-escalation, volunteer to show people how to train up on know your rights. There is so much that you can do to make sure to show everybody that you are going to make sure that everybody can vote safely, and that everybody around you also votes, is registered, can early vote, do absentee ballots. It's basically, we all need you to be really be a partner with us to make sure that it's going to be a safe. It's going to be safe to vote.
Look, one of the things that I love about partnering with you, I've been working with organizers for some time. One of the most critical things to getting folks civically engaged is to make sure that they are connected with people that they can trust, that they feel like share their background, that share their culture, that understand them. And you guys organize, in that way, with that spirit towards this community. And you're trying to solve something that requires a lot of trust. You're trying to solve voter intimidation at two levels, right? There is a comms challenge with voter intimidation. Whether anyone shows up at the polls or not, it has been floated that there's going to be ICE agents at the polls. Yeah. And not everyone is watching Defiance daily, figuring out if that's true or not. So you're trying to clearly communicate to this community and keep them updated on what's going on. And then you have this second challenge, which is like literally, what do you do at the polls? Can you talk about how you're solving the comms and connection issue with Latino voters across the country in this moment?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to do right now is actually conduct an experiment on various GOTV messaging, get out to vote messaging, to really see will this encourage people to vote, or suppress the vote. Because we have these messages on ICE present or near a polling location, is that going to be too much of an alarmist messaging? Is that going to suppress the vote? Are people not going to come, or et cetera? So we want to find out if that's true. So we're going to do various message tests, and we're going to find out what actually motivates them to go out there. Is it know your rights, or an ICE mailer, or how to vote safe? Is it stand up for your rights, or your community, your people have your back so you can vote? What message is going to resonate with Latino voters? So we're going to be doing a series of message tests with a closed panel consisting of 300 to 500 Latinos per treatment group. We're going to be testing these messages and seeing, does this resonate, does it not? And these tests cost money, so that's why thank you for having me on here. But that is going to be crucial, and nobody's done this test yet, by the way. There's not been a lot of groups, and so we are partners, and others are going to be sort of really hungry for this data. And it's going to inform not only how we reach Latino voters, but other voters of color and voters across the country. And it's going to inform our partners, and hopefully inform a big campaign that we're trying to launch that's called Citizens in Action, Ready to Vote, where we are going to try to scale poll training, de-escalation training, ride shares, and other sort of GOTV sort of campaigns. It's going to be a big campaign that we're hoping to partner with many groups that you will be familiar. Maybe I'll come back next time once we're like truly launched. But this is the first test.
So
Xander, they're
Beatrice,
launching a big campaign.
yeah, they're launching some big campaign. They need some money. They need experimental money. Beatrice, I'm in this case, we are a club of courageous Americans that help fund efforts like yours. And you and I have been peers in this space, organizing in different ways for a while. Experimental money is hard to come by. It's really hard to come. You can do a lot once you have the data. Big philanthropy loves to fund well-researched strategies, but getting those experiments off the ground is hard, but critical. You don't know what to do until you run those experiments. And I've got some good news for you in the form of a video from a Defiance member.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Lula from Boynton Beach, Florida. On behalf of all of the Defiant, it is my honor to present Voto Latino with a grant of $15,000 to help ensure that Latino voters are empowered to turn out during the upcoming midterms. Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh,
all right.
it's
So
amazing.
Let's go get you that
Thank
data.
you.
Let's go get you that data. Let's go figure out how to make sure Latino voters across this country can feel they're most safe, they're most supported, be the most informed they can be. And we're just happy you exist. You're out there doing this thing. We're lucky you've been digital first as long as you have, because who knew the world we'd be living in, not too long later. That's all digital all the time. We're just so excited to be in support of you all, your mission, in this important campaign you're running.
No, thank you so much. And you have no idea how far this goes, and it's going to inform so many partners, so many movements. It is like the first of a big campaign that we hope to launch to make sure that all of us feel like we can really shape America and really, just flip so many states. Here's hoping.
Critical work we're doing. I'm sure we're going to partner up before we get to the midterms again, and honestly, we do the show every day, Beatrice. If you just got news to share or something you got to tell our community, just ping me, you know where I'm at, and jump back on. Let us know how it's going.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the whole Defiance movement out there.
Thank you, friend.
Thanks, Beatrice.
All right.
That's so fun. That's just
It is fun. Isn't it the best? It's really
it's
fun.
hard. I have to just kind of hold my mouth because I just want to blurt it out. It's so much fun.
I get very geeky on the philanthropy thing too, because I am obviously, as you guys know now, you've met me, I'm very entrepreneurial. And in the philanthropic or civic space, it's very hard to find entrepreneurial money when you want to launch something new, when you've got a big idea. And in this moment, we're dealing with challenges we've never had. We don't have a lot of data on how to defeat an authoritarian that's threatening to arrest Latinos at the polls. You know what I mean? It's a new challenge. And so we've got to get out. We've got a message to people. We've got to figure out how to get to them. We've got to figure out what messages work. We legitimately need to figure out how to protect them. And so these are all new challenges. And I say all that just to tell the members at defiance.org, you all are pooling your money to do something big philanthropy does not do. And we're doing it week after week after week. And once she gets out there and goes to that data, she can go to the usual suspects and say, I figured it out. Now give me some money. But we are de-risking the most cutting edge and important strategies this cycle. And you all, like, if you're not already, you should pat yourself on the back for all that you're doing to support these organizations. And that leads me to the weekly mission. Let's do more to support them. So
Ooh,
Mercedes has a graphic for me here on our weekly actions. Number one, Beatrice mentioned it. Relationally organize people in the competitive districts, the target districts. We actually have a map here also from Voto Latino that we can get up at some point. But there's it doesn't have to be Voto Latino's competitive districts, to be honest. It's just sometimes I think we consume news at the national level, and it feels like we're in this war that we got to fight everywhere all the time. And then when you get up to the election day, we're like, oh, shit, it's just these 7 states and these 25 districts that really are going to determine what happens here. If you live in one, good news for you. It's easy to organize people in that district. Just go knock on doors, meet your neighbors, do whatever you need to do to organize them. If you don't, take a look at that map, figure out who you know in these places, give them a call. Voters are organized. Like this country and this civic system that we have, the engine behind it is a bunch of people telling 2 to 3 friends what to do. It seems like it's bigger than that because there's these big personalities talking on Substack and on these other platforms and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we're only useful if we can convince you to call 2 or 3 people that like you and know you and trust you, and you drive them to an action they wouldn't otherwise take. I'll pause there, Marisa, because I feel like you're vigorously agreeing. I want to give you some space.
No, this is my old eyes getting close to my computer so I can look at the map and try to see where, because I do think it's important, especially in this age of connectivity. We know people everywhere. Even I have friends who I call friends and I've never even met them in person, but because of this digital, like Xander, I don't think I met you in person when I was at the State of the Swamp. I should have.
No, not yet.
But we know people all over the world, and we're connected in ways we've never been connected before. So Xander makes a really good point. You have so much influence over your circle and the people who you know and who trust you. And so it is so important to talk to people. And I'll just throw out there, I have made pies and baked goods to encourage people to vote. I've said, I will deliver a pie of your choice to your door if you promise you're going to go vote. So, bribery works sometimes too, to just say, go to the polls.
Not only does bribery work, if you look at the great community organizers in history, right? Whether it's the Black Panthers and their school lunch program, it wasn't just their police the police program. It was their school lunch program.
Yeah.
If you look at the Zemstvas in Tsarist Russia, that were essentially the community organizers then and the mutual aid networks then, voting cannot be accomplished transactionally. That's a lot of the criticism you hear about the Democratic Party is they're transactional. They show up every once in a while and go, hey, you got to vote for me because the other guy's terrible. And, I'm your only option and whatnot. And we've lost, and this is what Voto Latino is adding and some other community organizers are adding. We've lost having a long-term relationship people where you're genuinely interested in their issues and you stay connected to them in the off season. And the Democratic Party that was functioning in a healthier way would fund Voto Latino and say, hey, I'm going to trust that your community is going to do the right thing. And I'm going to learn from this relationship and I'm going to build a platform that's based on what I understand about your community. And there'd be a better kind of connectivity between a party that asks you to vote every 2 years and the everyday issues facing different communities. And so that the current Democratic Party does not have that. Some candidates do. I think AOC does. I think Mandani does. Some candidates have a good connection to their community, but it doesn't exist writ large. And it certainly isn't the kind of guidelines for leadership from the top down.
Well, and it's a really great point because these things are hard to fake, right? And we can see through them. And especially when we talk about this digital age we're in and AI and the connectivity, people crave authenticity. people, they're flocking to places like Substack and our shows where we might, our guest isn't here yet, and that's real. That's real, and they don't want completely scripted, and they don't want fake. They want authentic. And also the fact that like relationships cannot just be when you need something. You have to build relationships and care about people.
In fact, we all know that guy. We all know that guy that only has a relationship when they need something. Do we like them? Not a lot. Right?
Yeah. And I learned that as a young cub reporter when people would say, hey, you gotta go build relationships with sources. And the way to do that is to have coffee, just to have coffee and talk. And be interested in their lives and ask people about themselves and show interest, actual interest, not because you have to, but because you care, because that's the whole point here. We're all here to learn from one another, care, grow, build. And so I think politicians could really learn that lesson. It's really frustrating for me when I don't see authenticity.
Diane Hampel says we need to be better listeners. I got Substack back up, so I got the comments finally. Sarah J. Rose says it's about relationships always. And you know what? That leads us to our second action. Sign up to be a Voto Latino partner. Beatrice gave us the domain earlier. We're going to pull that up on the screen, and we're also going to send you all this information as always via email right after this show. We ended up this was kind of a shortcut action because when I was talking to Amir, Beatrice's partner over there at Voto Latino, there was like 15 things for us to do, but he's like, you know what, actually just sign up to be a partner, and we have consistently dole out ways you can be in support of Voto Latino. It is massive that people like us, people across this country, show up for our Latino neighbors in a million different ways. This is one of them. There's ways in your community to show up for your Latino neighbors. Most, cities of even mid-size have a Latino organizer. So I would check in there with them as well. There's mutual aid networks. I know in my city in Portland, we've had, I think, 350 head of households removed by ICE. So it's 350 families that lost their income, lost the husband, in these households oftentimes, and are struggling to find food, to find housing. You're not sure how to make ends meet right now while they figure out what's going on. And it doesn't mean, these people have been deported yet, but it means that they are in purgatory right now. And so there's a million ways on top of what I'm asking you all to do to get engaged locally and figure out what's going on with your Latino community and how you can be of service to them in this moment. So I'm going to ask you to do that as well as a unseen fifth action here. Also, and this is more specifically around the broader election, save 866 our vote for election information. It's where you can go for up-to-date election information all the time. And lastly, we mentioned this earlier on the program, ask your Secretary of State to demand DHS ICE stay away from the polls. I think there's been 8 Secretary of States that have demanded from the DHS head that he sign a letter to say ICE agents will not be at the polls. We need all the secretaries of state to pile in there. We do not need armed agents at the polls to keep our elections safe. And we need to put pressure on the federal government to swear to it, to stay away from our polls and let our elections be free.
And this is in the law, 18 U.S. Code 592, and it's talking about sending the military or armed federal agents to polling places to monitor or interfere with an election. So, cite that and say, hey, this is actually not legal.
All right, gang. That was it. We got through it. We got through it without Miles. I missed him a little bit. I realize I do when I get nervous tossed to Miles, and I was missing my teddy bear a little bit.
You could toss to me. I mean, okay. I might not say something smart, but you could always toss to me.
Mainly on reading the script, not necessarily on the opinion side. I love your contributions. We do have time. If we want to take it, we are one of the benefits of not having Miles. We end earlier than usual, so we've got a couple minutes. If anyone has any
Mercedes is saying, go to the script.
Go to the script. Sorry, Mercedes. The inmates are running the prison. I missed the weekly. You know what? I actually consider this is starting to become tradition. I missed the weekly badge presentation. The weekly badge. Stand with Latino voters. That's what we're doing this week. That's what we're doing this freaking election cycle. That's what we're doing this entire administration, as long as we have to protect our neighbors from a racist authoritarian government that is scapegoating them in not dissimilar ways to how the Jews were scapegoated in Germany, nearly 100 years ago. So we're going to stand with them now. We're going to stand with them later. Let's keep up the fight. Let's keep up the allyship. We've been asked for, the last 10 years to be allies. These different communities where you're talking about kind of BLM and that movement with George Floyd. I think we are, I'll speak for myself. I won't project. I grew up in an era where being civically disengaged was the norm. And we threw a lot into our careers and we threw a lot into our friendships. And then over the last 15 years, we've added civic engagement. And I think sometimes when I talk to my friends or even donors in the space or other folks, you can tell there's like this question of like, when can I stop? when can I not put as much into this or pay less attention and go back to the way it was? And the answer is it never should have been that way. We never, this is how we got here. It was, we were disengaged and we didn't organize and we didn't watch what our elected officials were doing. And that's how we ended up here. And so look, this is the new norm. It is gathering like this. I hope this, no matter what happens to orangemanbad.org, if you haven't been there yet, go there, orangemanbad.org. No matter what happens to them, this should be the new norm. We get together, we figure out what's going on with our neighbors, we figure out what's going on with our politicians, we take action together.
See, I had a different upbringing, and I don't know if it was because of my family. I mean, my mom and my grandpa were both very engaged, both in their communities and politically. But I also grew up in Minnesota and Minneapolis specifically. And that
you guys do it right.
Ooh, I mean, like one of the highest voter turnouts in the country. I mean, I knew, it was funny. I just found, my mom brought me all of, parents, why are you bringing your grown kids all of their grade schoolwork? I didn't want it, right? But I have this box of all of my schoolwork, and I have all of these diary notes to my teacher about Ross Perot and Bill Clinton and George Bush from 1992.
That sounds right, actually.
I was in grade school. I was like, who knew that I was so, apparently I was a big Ross Perot fan back then, but, it's just one of those things. Like I grew up in a very engaged community. And so when I hear that, Xander, it's so interesting. Like, I want to talk to you more about that. Like what was the issue that said to you, like, no, this is enough. I'm getting engaged.
I think for a lot of us, just because of how abrasive Trump was, and the way he talked about, especially if you grew up urban, right? If you grew up in cities, diverse cities, you have lots of female friends, whatever it is. And this guy's saying, he's abusing women, just grab him by the pussy, that, Mexicans are rapists, all the stuff he said, I think was a wake up moment that you couldn't just coast. I think up until that moment, I had a impact ideology around the private sector. I'll create tech companies that do good. And it sounds so funny now because the tech industry is such a bad guy. But at the time there was this real idealism, from connecting everyone, making information free, the democratization of information and whatnot. And so, that wasn't my entire political awakening, but I think for a lot of my friends and peers, that was a moment where it's okay, maybe we can't be passive. And then you see some of the stuff start to happen, kids in cages and whatnot. And so,
but it wasn't until Trump for you. It wasn't until Trump.
It wasn't until Trump. Yeah, I would say it wasn't until Trump where I was I have to, this has to be my path. You know what I mean? I think I was always interested. I cared about social issues always, but it wasn't I think I was still playing with the idea that I could have my impact on society in different ways. I could be in the private sector or I could do other things. And then I've now since been on a pretty long and impactful journey.
See, and I was in high school when Minnesota elected Jesse Ventura as governor. And that was a big moment for people who just turned 18. And a lot of my friends, that was a galvanizing issue for a lot of my newly 18-year-old voters. They wanted to go, vote for the wrestler. But it's all our shared experience. And it's I love to hear those stories. What was the issue?
Before that, I thought I was politically engaged. I was a pretty engaged Facebook slacktivist that would yell at my racist uncles. That was the extent of my civic engagement. All right, I know we're a little over time. Let me check if we have any questions from members before we get.
She
out
says
of
thumbs
here.
down. No,
Thumbs
no
down. No
messages.
questions. No one wants to. No one wants to hear from us anymore. No,
No
I'm just
one
kidding.
want. They want
So
us to
nice.
stop talking.
So nice to
Don't
have you
tell
all
on me
here.
like that, okay?
Oh, the voice of God making the program. Mercedes getting in there.
Ooh.
All right, gang. Thank you for gathering once again. It was an amazing mission this week, an amazing organization, amazing leaders we're supporting. As always, we'll get you that info tomorrow morning on exactly what to do if you weren't vigorously writing down notes during this program. Thank you so much for my co-host here, Maritza Giorgio, and all the work she does at the Grounded podcast, and increasingly all the work she does with us over here at Defiance. Thanks for riding with us on this one.
Oh, so happy to be here. And thanks to this community for letting me kind of crash the party. It's great.
All right. I'll do the Miles sign off, which I think I've now committed to memory. All right, everyone. Until next time, which will be at 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for Defiance Daily. Stay loud, stay brave, and stay defiant. We'll see you.